Welcome to West Country Wanderings. We're back here in Weston in Bath, and today we make our final journey. Yes, it's journey's end, and we're going to make our way towards the Royal Crescent and to finish our journey at Bath Abbey. But along the way I'll be stopping and telling you more about the history of this fascinating Roman town and how it came to start it being built as a settlement and growing up. It's fascinating, so why not join me here in West Country Wanderings. In 744 BC, Brutus, with a group of fellow Trojans, landed at Totnes in Devon, where from lived previously. After defeating the local people, a race of giants, they established a kingdom that extended from the Tamar between Devon and Cornwall to the Wiltshire-Gloucestershire borders. The royal line from Brutus reached, by the 7th generation, King Hubridus, who had a son, Bladud. Unfortunately, Bladud contracted leprosy, and the court, understandably anxious to avoid contamination, banished him. Bladud travelled to Keynsham, which is between Bristol and Bath. I just came through it on the train this morning, where he took a job as a swineherd. In time, the pigs contracted leprosy, and in effort to avoid this being detected, Bladud took his herd to Swineswick, which is now called Swainswick, which is just off the A46. Near his hiding place was a spot where the pigs, while rooting for acorns amongst the trees, occasionally found mud to wallow in. And Bladud noticed that one pig, which he'd lost for about a week, had been cured of the leprosy. Bladud tried the mud cure on himself. After a week, he too was cured of the disease and returned to his father's palace. In 505 BC, Bladud travelled to Athens, where he was given the name Abras the Sage, and he taught Zoroaster magic and Pythagoras philosophy. In 483 BC, he returned to England to succeed his father, and once settled, he built a capital here, Caer Bedol, the city of Bath, or Aqua Sulis, the waters of the sun. Finally, he reached the limit of his knowledge and the end of his life, when a pair of wings he had invented failed to live up to expectations on their proving flight from the top of the Temple of Apollo. He was succeeded in 463 BC by Shakespeare's King Lear. Bath has currently 2 statues to Bladud at King's and Cross Baths. We'll see if we can find those. The one at King's Baths was erected in 1699 and commemorates him as son of Hubridus, the 8th king of the Britons, a great philosopher and mathematician, bred at Athens and first discoverer and founder of these baths. 863 BC and 2,562 years later, in the present year 1699. That was the date of the statue. What we're going to do now is continue our journey from here at Weston village on the outskirts of Bath. I'll make our way towards Bath Abbey, and I'll be telling you more about the story of Bath and about that tale which I've just told you. So this is quite a surprise. We've got a green open space here. I knew we're crossing some parkland today, including Queen Victoria's parkland. I didn't expect to be going across some open grassland, although we're not actually on grass as yet, although we might touch grass in a second by the looks of it, because when I entered Weston last time in Cotswold Way 19, I said, that's it, we've already done for walking across grass. But no, that's not quite the case. I haven't got my boots on today. I've come on the train and I caught the bus up to Weston, so I've just got my city shoes on. Unusual here for West Country Wanderings to be deep city walking. It's not something I normally do, but obviously it's the end of the Cotswold Way and it's important to tell you the story of Bath, and we'll do that as we continue. So yeah, we're on this open comm here at the base of Primrose Hill, so actually above Weston. That's the Royal United Hospital over there, Bath main hospital. There are a couple of others in Bath. Fantastic spot. There is a air balloon there, just over there, if you can see that. I'll have to swap my lens over and take a closer photograph of it, but yeah, it gives us a wonderful perspective again. I didn't realise we would gain height again. I thought we were just going to be walking along streets to get in towards the Abbey, but this is wonderful to come up from Weston where we left last time, to gain height and gain perspective once more over the city. So it's giving you good views. Just continue the tale of the history of Bath. Now, what I said before, which was documented by John Wood, the historian, is a little bit of what's called now faction, a bit of fiction and made up stuff, lots of fable. There is actually, interestingly, the Brutus Stone in Totnes. If you walk through Totnes High Street, 4th Street there, halfway up on the right hand side before you get to that terrific arch in Totnes, you will actually see the Brutus Stone there. But it is more of a fable than anything else. Anyway, I will tell you a bit more about the history of this wonderful city while I'm here and it's nice and quiet. The truth is rather more prosaic. Doubtless the earliest men were aware of the hot springs which gush forth every day, and indeed they still do. With little variation, 250,000 gallons of water at 50 degrees centigrade gushes out of the springs, and as I say, they still do here in Bath. But the first real interest to them, of course, was shown by the Romans. Following the Roman invasion into Britain in AD 43, so it's after obviously BC, so AD 43, so it's bringing us forward some 500 odd years from that particular fable about how Bath started. The Romans swept westwards, capturing one after the other the hill forts, we've seen some of those on a journey across the Cotswold Way, defeated natives, including the most magnificent one at Maiden Castle. Now, I think Maiden Castle is out towards Dorset. In fact, the train I caught today was going from Great Malvern down to Weymouth, and it stopped at a place called Maiden Newton, and I do believe that Maiden Castle is in that type of area. The Romans quickly established a frontier zone stretching along a line from Exeter through Gloucester and Leicester towards the Humber, and soon pushed a road through it, the Fosse Way. Now, if you're familiar with this part of the world, you'll see that there is a Roman straight road which goes straight up in a line out of Bath, through Cirencester, up towards Stow-on-the-Wold, up towards Warwick, and then it does make its way indeed to the city of Leicester. It then goes on towards the Humber and pushed out, as I say, the road went on it. It passed close to a place in the middle of a swamp where hot water came gushing out, and the Romans, with their history of exploiting such places, took up the challenge. From their point of view, the site was ideal. The earth supplied the water, the Cotswolds to the north supplied a stone that was easy to work, and yet hardened when exposed. And the Mendips to the south supplied lead for the piping and limestone for the mortar. Now, indeed, if you have a trip around the Roman baths, we won't have time to go inside today, but there are bits and pieces you can see from the outside. You will see, as you tour around the Roman baths, there are exposed original Roman lead piping. There was a real Celtic influence in the town, which can be seen in the superb male Gorgon's head now displayed in the Roman Baths Museum. A mixture of Roman artistry and Celtic ferocity. Beautiful tree lined and now golden fringed because it's autumn, with the leaves on the ground just edging the pavements, giving that line. I love that come across in the little clip there. Now this part of Bath reminds me of my very first video that I did on Dartmouth. If you've not seen that, please check it out. I'll put a link in below. Please bear in mind, I hope I've improved since that very first one. I've learnt in terms of presentation and technical skills as well, I think, but it's still, I think, worth a look at. And I was exploring the steps around Dartmouth, and this part of Bath reminds me of that part of Dartmouth. I'm really savouring this last 2 or 3 miles before we get to the Abbey, making our way to the centre. This part of Bath, we're high above the centre still here, which has surprised me how the altitude that we are. An altitude makes it sound like Everest. It's not high, but gives you perspective over the rest of the city, and it's lovely. It's also nice and quiet, and the fact is autumn gives it some wonderful colourings which contrast nicely with the limestone brick. Yes, the Cotswold Way's entry to the city of Bath is indeed stunning. It's been very carefully crafted. I can just see the Royal Crescent there just to my left, and we'll go and have a closer look at that shortly. The path makes its way round this park and then it skirts its way back up to the Royal Crescent. I'll do a presentation in front of the Royal Crescent to tell you more about that. But yeah, it's here. It's just absolutely breathtaking. Now, before we get to the Royal Crescent, we just wanted to tell you a little bit more about Bath. What happened after the Romans left? The Roman town lasted for some 400 years and it collapsed over a relatively short period. With the withdrawal of the Roman armies in the early years of the 5th century, the province of Britain was increasingly exposed to attacks by the Saxons. The area around Bath was not itself attacked until the late 6th century. But by then the process of decay had begun. Many of the stones being taken by the farmers in the surrounding areas to build and repair their own stone walls. Following the Battle of Durham, if you remember that, we were at Hinton Hill before we entered Durham Park. I spoke about the battle there in 577 AD. The Saxons took their 3 towns of Gloucester, Cirencester and Bath, then known as Akerman or Bathnacaster, the Saxons recorded that the town itself was in ruins, but they were impressed with the high standard of the buildings, which was far in advance of anything they were capable of. They described the town as the work of giants. A Saxon poem of the 8th century records the town as being a ghostly ruin, with crumbling masonry and dark pools, overgrown and left to the birds. But still impressive, it seems that even after Dyrham, the Saxons did not settle finally in the area, but waited until 658 AD, when the Battle of Peoman, believed to have taken place around the Somerset town of Frome, made the area totally secure. Offa founded an abbey to St. Peter at Hut Batha in the early part of his reign, around 760, but it was in a place that was already sacred to the Saxons. Under the influence of Dunstan, abbot of nearby Glastonbury, this abbey became Benedictine in the 10th century and saw in 973 the coronation of King Edgar. Now this is a really important point, performed by the same Dunstan, by then Archbishop of Canterbury. This was the first coronation of a king in England, who was rightly entitled to call himself King of England, and its 1000th anniversary was the subject of a great celebration in Bath in 1973. That ceremony of 973 took place in Bath, shows that the site was of considerable secular importance at the time, and that there had been a lasting Saxon influence there. The river, however, retains the British name Avon, a River Avon. Looks like in this park was originally Bath Golf Course. Obviously we saw another golf course. Oh, I'm just checking if I'm on the right path. I think my path is just on the lower one, and I'm going to make myself, well, back up again. Yes, so we saw the golf course when we were up at Lansdowne near the race course, but it looks like there used to be another golf course here, but doesn't look like it's used anymore for reasons unknown. I'm now in Queen Victoria Park, so I just thought I'd tell you a little bit more about what happened later on with our story with Bath. Following the Norman conquest, the town suffered really badly, and the conflict between William Rufus and his barons destroyed virtually everything. To re-establish the abbey, and therefore the town, Rufus in 1088 ordered the then Bishop of Bath and Wells to make his seat at Bath. The Bishop, Rufus's physician, John de Voulier, John of Tours, did so, and set about construction of a cathedral so large that the present abbey occupies only the site of its nave. At the same time, the bishop promoted or rediscovered the medicinal qualities of the water, and Bath began to be recognised as a healing centre. By the 12th century, the sick were arriving from all over the country to bathe in the waters, and the town was benefiting from the trade. At that time there were 5 baths, King's, Cross and Hot being public, with the abbots and the priors reserved for the abbey's sole use. For a considerable time the history of Bath is the history of the abbey, which will be dealt with when we come to the abbey towards the end of our journey today. In addition to the abbey, the town derived some wealth in the Middle Ages from its share of the local wool trade, obviously with the Cotswolds and the Mendips surrounding the city. A share that seemed to have been small in view of the area's available resources of Fuller's Earth. As with Winchcombe, it is probable that the abbey contributed to the wealth of the town by the process now known as spin-off. And in addition, the baths helped the general prosperity. Besides the obvious gain from an influx of visitors, there were more clandestine activities. At this time, the baths were notable for their unpleasantness, or open to the air and so filthy that they were said to stink. By 1533, the antiquarian John Leland visited the cross bath, so called from the cross in its centre. He described it as much frequented of people diseased with leprosy and scabies and great aches. Later in the 16th century, after the dissolution of the Abbey and a reduction in the wool trade, the town corporation realised the harm such conditions could do to its most valued asset and appointed a full-time paid attendant. So we're currently in the Great Dell, which has some of the biggest, oldest trees in Bath, some fantastic specimens, right next to the Botanical Gardens, which is also on the end of the Queen Victoria Garden. So yeah, we will get to the Royal Crescent, don't worry, but just thought I'd have a quick explore here. Some terrific ones. Look at this one here. Yeah, I could spend ages here, couldn't I, doing name that tree, but haven't got time for that today because we're just exploring the city of Bath, and we obviously need to get to the Abbey to end our journey. But yeah, this is a terrific dell with all these magnificent trees here. While I'm here in the Dell, I thought I'd bring you up to date with the history of Bath. Little remains of Bath from its earliest period of prosperity. Much was destroyed during the 18th century rebuilding of it. However, there's the Sally Lunn's house with North Parade, which is now built for the Duke of Kingston in 1480, though the frontage was constructed around the 17th century, and today it continues as a coffee house. Abbey Church House behind the cross bath was built in the late 16th century for Sir Walter Hungerford, but it occupied the site of an old leper hospital dating from the 12th century. There's also some 17th century houses in Broad Street. The next upswing in Bath's fortunes were due to the visits in 1702 and 1703 of Queen Anne, which gave rise to an influx of the rich and fashionable, bringing with them their craze for gambling. The scene was set for the arrival of that most famous of Bath's citizens, Beau Nash. Now, Richard Beau Nash was born in Swansea in South Wales in 1674, and he was the son of a wealthy glass merchant. He had an eventful early life too, leaving Oxford because of a scandal involving a woman, and the Guards because they did not suit his inclinations. In 1695, at only 21, he organised a pageant for the King, William of Orange, and was accepted into high society. He arrived in Bath in 1705 short of funds, and won a considerable sum in a short time at gambling tables. To regulate the social life of the town, the corporation had taken to appointing the Master of Ceremonies, and when the current one, Captain Webster MC, a well-known bully, was finally killed in a duel, Nash was given the job, one that he was to keep for over 50 years. Under Nash's guidance, the city became the social centre of England, expanding with a rush of fine buildings, including theatres and assembly rooms. The gambling continued and became excessive that eventually an Act of Parliament was passed in 1739 to curtail it and make illegal some specific forms of gambling. Nash was never paid as an MC, receiving instead a share of house profits which he used to support a very extravagant lifestyle and fine clothes and houses. He died in 1761. The Bath of Nash seems to have been an endless round of gatherings in the assembly rooms, walks along the laid down routes, theatres, dances and of course gambling. Nash ordered that everything should cease at 11 o'clock and stopped the extortion practice by the sedan chairman by introducing a single sixpenny fare to anywhere in the city and a 10-shilling fine for swearing at the passengers. But Bath could not have been the social centre without its buildings erected. We have to thank a group of architects for the fabulous architecture that we're about to see. And they were called the Woods, who were a father and son team, supported by the remarkable Ralph Allen. Now, Allen was a Cornishman. He'd been renting an ailing postal service, but he turned it round because he was an astute businessman, becoming very wealthy in the process. He arrived in Bath in 1710, and seeing the potential development, he bought the Coombe Down quarries so he could then harbour the local limestone, the Bath stone, of which the buildings are built of. The tradition was carried on by Wood's son, John the Younger, and a group of young architects. The Georgian architecture is in a Palladian style with the columns and those famous Doric arches. After Nash's death, the social system continued much before, but Bath later fell out of favour. I've just come through Royal Victoria Park, just insert a little bit of footage of the Queen Victoria monument there with the gates. The gates look absolutely stunning. As you can see behind me, this stunning Royal Crescent #1 is at that end. To my left, your right, and we'll get a bit closer. So I'm actually in front of the private lawn. That's a private lawn behind me there, and so this is just as far as close as I can get, while still trying to get in as much of the crescent as I possibly can. While I'm here, just tell you a little bit about the history of this. The Royal Crescent, perhaps the most famous of all the Bath buildings. The Crescent was the first of its kind in England and was completed in 1774 by John Wood the Younger. It comprises 30 houses with 114 Ionian columns and enjoyed at its completion an uninterrupted view south. #1 has been authentically restored as a Georgian residence and it's open to the public. The Crescent has seen some famous residents in its day. Sir Isaac Pitman, who we came across when we did Wootton Under Edge. I can't remember what Cotswold Way number that was, but Sir Isaac Pitman was born in Wootton, and he lived in the town for many years, but he also lived here at the Royal Crescent. He lived at number 12. And Sheridan eloped with Elizabeth Linney from number 11. What we're going to do now is continue our journey on. We're going to go along Brock Street, which is also another creation of John Wood the Younger, and into the Circus, which is equally fabulous. But before I do that, I'll just take some photographs and some footage along the top part of the Crescent. Just outside the former home of Sir Isaac Pitman, one of Wootton Under Edge, and just coming up to, on my left, your right, is one that's now used as a hotel. It's the Royal Crescent Bath Hotel. There it is, marked with the 2 trees there just behind me. So there, yeah, I dread to think how much that one costs a night. But yeah, so we're pretty much in the centre of the Crescent here. Just do a quick spin round. You can see the rest of the city here. Actually not too busy. It's obviously, this is one of the key tourist hotspots here in Bath, but today it's not too bad. Excuse the person cutting the grass, that's always the way. I know that always tends to happen, but yeah, it's enjoyable here in Bath today. We're now just leaving the Royal Crescent and joining Brock Street, and then we come on to my favourite part of Bath, my personal favourite, which is the Circus. We're just coming along Brock Street, and Circus is just ahead of us. So we'll have a quick spin around there. And just to tell you, when I was on the bus, I was sat on the top of the double-decker bus, making my way here to Weston, shall I say, from the railway station, and they were making a film. In fact, one of the roads was closed off. I don't know the name of it, but I saw it from the top of the bus, and they were obviously doing a snow scene because the entire street was covered in fake snow. Really interesting. No idea what they're filming, but looked interesting. So we're now walking around the Circus, and as you can probably imagine, it is circular. I had a drone that could fly it up. I probably wouldn't be allowed, but there's an oak tree in the centre, and I'll take some images. You'll get a handle on what it actually looks like. But it's a complete quadrant with, you can imagine like a roundabout, but with like a Royal Crescent round the outside. You get the picture. So yeah, it's a fabulously designed street, and colonnade of houses here. It looks absolutely magnificent, and I say it's my favourite part of Bath, although there are some other ones, contenders for that. Pulteney Bridge over the River Avon. Perhaps we've got time to look at that later, and so I'm going to continue enjoying the circus and take some more shots here. Street behind me there was called Gay Street, and it takes you downhill down towards the main shopping and business area of Bath city centre. It's now, of course, getting a lot busier, so I probably won't do so many pieces to camera, just to say that Bath Abbey is not far away, and it feels really, really strange actually, having walked some, well, I think in terms of the Cotswold Way, it's 102 miles long, so obviously I've completed all of that, but walking back to my car as well each time, it makes it something like 180 miles, I think, that I've walked on this particular venture. So we are coming towards Journey's End. And just behind me there, apart from Beau Nash, Bath's other most famous resident was Jane Austen, and there's the Jane Austen Museum just behind me. And at the moment it's known as Queen Square. Just do a quick spin round and so you can see that. Yes, it is a nice quiet spot in the middle. Unfortunately, it's completely surrounded by busy traffic on all sides, so not as nice as the botanical gardens that we saw earlier in terms of quiet space. New Theatre Royal Bath behind me, and they're currently performing on stage The Good Life, so it feels like I've just gone back to the 1970s. This is another one of Bath's many squares. This one's called Kingsmead Square, and it's a hive of activity. It's where all the bars and restaurants are. People are having lunch outside at the moment, so it's got a wonderful continental atmosphere. Coming up to the site of the Royal Baths and the pump room. In fact, it's actually closed off in front of the pump room because of aforesaid filming for the snow scene, or whatever film they're doing, so I can just show you that. Well, this is it, ladies and gentlemen. In front of me is Bath Abbey, and this does mean, in fact, that it is Journey's End here on the Cotswold Way. I have a musical accompaniment to add to it. I don't even need to add the music on the soundtrack, which makes it amazing. But I'll just turn around so we can have a look at the Abbey together. And there it is. I'm standing now at the finishing point of the Circle that marks the end of the Cotswold Way, here outside magnificent Abbey. It's quite a feeling, it really is. And anybody, I can highly recommend this walk. It's been absolutely an amazing journey. I've loved every minute on it. It's been extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. I'm looking forward to doing another trail next year, so see you all then. Well, that's all for Cotswold Way 20. I hope you enjoyed the video today. If you did, please consider subscribe, share, like or comment. Until next time, take care of yourselves, look after yourselves, all the best, and hope to see you all again soon. Cheers from Bath, bye bye.